So welcome to our session today. Thanks for coming to join the Penn State University team to share their story, the practice and research evidence from PSU's Maturing Digital Badge Initiative. So thank you for joining us. If you have questions that you would like to ask the panel, please use the chat feature. They may answer them as we go, or as at the end, they'll have a few minutes for questions as well. So be sure to use those two areas if you're interested in asking some questions of the panel. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Penn State. So thank you.
Great, thanks very much. Thanks for having us here today. My name is Kathy Holsing, and I'm the director of the Office for Digital Learning in the College of Engineering at Penn State. Tori, if you want to go to the next slide. And I'm here with a number of my colleagues, both from my college in engineering and also from the university libraries, to talk about a variety of digital badging initiatives that are going on here at Penn State. So I'm going to start us off and then hand it over to my colleagues to each talk about their respective areas, and they'll introduce themselves when they start to talk about their work. Next slide. So the College of Engineering is the largest college at Penn State. We have about 10,000 students, both undergraduate and graduate, 13 different academic departments within the college. And we began exploring badging back in 2018 at the request of our dean. And he really had several different goals for this program. One, he really wanted to try and position the College of Engineering as a leader at Penn State in the micro-credentialing space, at least among the academic units. He wanted us to think about ways that we could provide our students with a flexible, competency-based credential that would be portable and help them to differentiate themselves from their peers at other institutions who would be graduating along with our students from Penn State, but they would only be graduating with a traditional degree, whereas our students would have this additional credential along with that. And then lastly, he also wanted us to think about and investigate how we could provide continuing education opportunities, both for our alumni. Obviously, we have a large alumni base with such a large student population, and then any other professionals that are looking to learn new skills or polish the skills they have, but aren't really interested in committing to a full certificate or degree program. So we investigated a number of different technical platforms to do this, including there's a platform that was developed in-house at Penn State, which you'll be hearing more about from my library colleagues. And then we also looked at a variety of different vendors and their platforms. But I think even more importantly than the technology, we also tried to really consult with a number of key stakeholders at Penn State. There's been pockets of people doing badging around the university for a number of years. But we wanted to really try and pull in a lot of the other stakeholders that had wanted to give us input into how we could make this work. So this, as you can imagine, at a large university like ours, took a substantial amount of time. We talked to people like our central IT unit, which they're the ones who are actually supporting the badging platform that Penn State has now, but they're also kind of setting the way forward for IT technology, at the university. We talked with our registrar. Obviously, he was interested in the record keeping aspect of this, and how to make sure that students who had earned a credential or a badge from Penn State would have that on a record somewhere. Our strategic communications group was also very interested in this. Obviously, they're very concerned about Penn State's brand, and had some strong ideas about where it could or could not be used. And then finally, we talked with University Outreach, which is really the unit at Penn State that's responsible for our World Campus, which is our 4-credit platform and campus that offers all of our master's and bachelor's degrees online. And so they were not really as interested in the non-credit aspect of what we were trying to do here at Penn State, but they were still a large stakeholder in this area. Next slide. So we ended up adopting the Acclaim platform in the College of Engineering. And as of right now, we currently have about 22 badges that have been developed by 5 different departments or units within our college. And so I'm going to just take a few minutes, and Andrea and I are going to talk about 2 different kind of case studies or examples which highlight different aspects of what the college's vision is for badging. So the first one is from our architectural engineering department. And this is a certificate series on a topic called building information modeling. And it's actually offered to an external audience. So not to current Penn State students, but to those who are outside of the university, professionals working in the field that need to know more about BIM, building information modeling, in the course of their daily work. The content for these badges was developed from a graduate level course that was taught by a faculty member in AE who is really world renowned in the BIM area, both nationally and internationally. So we thought that there would really be interest from external audiences to getting the content and the information that he was able to share because of his expertise in the field. And so when we looked at his course, we divided it into the competencies that he thought were really most important that he wanted to include in this badging platform, and ended up with 3 different competencies and a corresponding badge that went along with each one of those. Each badge has between 12 and 20 hours of instruction, so it's not an insignificant amount of time investment for each student, but it's also not a semester-long course like it would be if they were taking something for credit at Penn State. And we helped him develop different ways to assess the competencies that he wanted to look at for each badge. And students are able to earn each badge independently and just stop at that, or they can, if they're interested, they can earn all 3 together, and those would, the 3 of them would then stack into a meta badge for indicating that they had completed the whole BIM program certificate. Really, we're at the beginning stages. We have the badges kind of set up and ready to go, but we're really at the beginning stages of sort of rolling this out to the audience that we're trying to attract to this. But because of what we've done here, we do have a number of other externally facing credentials that are in the works. So especially if this is a successful operation, we really feel like there's other opportunities that we have within the college to create some credentials that could be attractive to an external audience. So I'm going to turn it over now to my colleague, Andrea Gregg, who can talk to you a little bit more about how the badging initiative is being implemented in one of the departments in engineering, mechanical engineering. Andrea?
Thanks, Kathy. I'm Andrea Gregg, and I am Director of Online Pedagogy within Mechanical Engineering. And we started looking at badges around 2017, and the vision of our department head was similar to what Kathy said, wanting to give students who have a really tight curriculum a way to personalize, so a way to explore topics that weren't necessarily being taught in their courses. Our approach within mechanical has been to look at those 21st century skills. This has been talked about a lot at the conference. And in general, we try to invite Penn State mechanical engineering alum who are working in industry in some capacity to speak on sort of a business skill or a topic that has been central to their work that they didn't necessarily learn in their program. This semester, per COVID, as we're doing everything, has been our first semester doing these online. So that's changed a lot of the instructional design, but we're working hard to make sure the competencies are the same as non-COVID semesters. So to quickly kind of talk about the data at the college level and then the data within the mechanical engineering department, the college itself has issued 543 badges, 315 within the last year, 73% issued have been accepted, a significant percentage shared to LinkedIn. Of Acclaim lets you share to LinkedIn, Twitter, et cetera. almost entirely student share to LinkedIn versus anywhere else. The average shares and acceptance, 3.2, average views to share. And then the largest topics are, largest number of badges were awarded for specific architecture, civil and environmental engineering program. Within mechanical, I'm coordinating an IRB study where we've actually done surveys, focus groups, and interviews with our learners. And one interesting thing, especially in the theme of this conference, is that primarily they're motivated by the topics and speakers and not the badges, not earning a badge itself. They're still unsure about the importance to employers. And there is one exception that I'll talk about, which is this summer, the college and Kathy's group coordinated badges to supplement internships that students couldn't do because of COVID. And that one, the students were very much interested in the badge itself. So it seems when it's related to something that's already recognizable by employers, it seemed different. But overall, they're happy with the topics and activities. We're just still in that kind of middle range of, do employers care? Does it make sense to put on my resume? How do I integrate this? Okay, and now I will hand it off to our libraries folks.
Thanks, Andrea. I had to slide the screen and go off mute at the same time. So I am Victoria Raish, and I am the online learning coordinator for the library. So I'm going to talk a bit about the historical context of our library badges, some of the trajectory we had, and you can now compare it to what the College of Engineering is doing, and then hand it over to my colleagues who are going to talk a bit about some research we've done and some machine learning scaling we've done within our badges. So in the library badges really started in 2012, 2013, which anybody who's been in this game for a while, has skin in the game, knows that that was like right after the Mozilla MacArthur Foundation and that talk earlier today from people who have been in it for a decade. So yeah, I've been pretty much in it for a decade. And we were interested in creating badges primarily internally for students. And the reason we were interested in creating them was because we teach a lot of information literacy instruction, but we don't have 4-credit classes that we teach very often in the library. So it's a lot of partnerships across campus. At the same time, information literacy is a learning objective that is part of our general education curriculum at Penn State. So we need to find a way to bring it into classes a lot with foundational learners or novice learners, people, not necessarily all freshmen, could be transfer students, online students, but people who are generally like in the foundational course series. So we conducted, as part of this, I was a GA during this time, we conducted employer-based research on both the perceptions of micro-credentials and information literacy skills. So we published, that article got published in 2016. We have additional data on employer perceptions and on employer perceptions of information literacy that we just have not published on yet, but we ran another survey. So we did that through a survey company, got 300, an N of 300, and that is published in the Association for College and Research Libraries. And that has really helped us drive some of the design of our badges because we wanted them to, of course, meet information literacy skills instruction, but we also wanted them to hopefully kind of fill some gaps in the curriculum where employers felt students were lacking coming in. So things like being able to innovate, entrepreneurship, critical thinking, making patterns, connecting, taking initiative, those kinds of things. So we use that to help influence the design of our badges. We first issued, so we built them in 2013. We did not issue a badge until 2016. Summer 2016, we did like a little pilot with a class. From there, our program has really, in the library, has really exploded. And we've explored using some artificial intelligence, machine learning technology to help us get through that. And so we primarily work with classes in a requirement or highly recommended co-curricular. So we get really good attendance with the badges. We work with upwards of 30 sections every single semester. And we've recruited 20 evaluators and we've developed rubrics with our badges so that we can hopefully introduce some objectivity into the evaluation. And in terms of maintenance of the badges, we look at them at the end of every semester to make small tweaks and updates. If a badge needs a more major update in terms of content revision, we consider like retiring it for a semester, updating it, and then publishing again for the next semester. So this is an image of our badges at the library. This is not necessarily quite all of the badges, but it's a pretty good representation of what we have. So the top set there is what we developed first in 2013. The ones at the bottom, you can consider more of like a foundation. They introduce students to library services, so they're not as much about skill development or competency as much as just like learning about a library service. And those are meant for online students so that they hopefully reduce some of their library anxiety, essentially. And so you can see that we've grouped these into 3 different categories. Our initial vision was that we would work with like a department, like right? Like journalism majors or something like that. And they would earn the badges throughout their degree. And then in their like capstone class or whatever, they would also earn the Uber badge at the same time. What happened in reality is that we are working with individual instructors who see value in using these, including some in comm, but not the whole comm program. And so we basically choose badges that are relevant for that particular class. So a class will earn anywhere from 1 to 5 badges typically if they work with us over the semester. So I have a bit of data here, and I'm going to pass it over to my other library colleagues. So since 2016, we've issued over 15,000 badges. We do stay within Penn State's digital badging system. So when we were creating our badges in 2012, 2013, Penn State also, we got an internal grant to develop a badging system. And so it was first called Lifelong Learning Landscapes, and it was connected to NASA's badging platform for their education program specialists. If anybody was in the, 2012, 2013 remembers that. And then we transitioned into badgesapp.psu.edu as our current internal app system. And so we still use that system. It actually serves as a content management system as well. So it's a little bit different than some other badging platforms. But that's important to us in the library because we don't really have like classes or anywhere else where we're representing this content. We've worked with over 300 sections of courses, over 30 courses, 20 of those evaluators, and 15 badges. So our badges do require manual evaluation because we believe strongly in instructional design model that requires students to articulate their initial thinking and connect it to hopefully some reflection, application, and transfer. So because of that, we do manually evaluate at least some of the steps in the badge. Some is automated through quizzing. And so I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Hoyman, who's going to talk a bit about how we handled this problem and what we did when we were at capacity and really had this case of unexpected success.
Thank you, Tori, for this chance to introduce my work. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Huaibin Zhang. Now is a PhD student and also working as a graduate assistant with this badge system. And this project aims to automate the overall grading process from library users with artificial intelligence backend. A machine learning model is fitted into learning from correlation between user submission and their corresponding grade. After that, the machine learning model will grade a new submission independently with an accurate rate of over like 18%. The machine learning model is the area of like artificial intelligence that allows us to use data model to determine how likely is that with new observation in a good match with a category of observation. For example, if we have trained a machine learning model in a labeled picture of cat and dog, then it might be able to tell us how likely it is in a new observation is a cat or dog or not. And in this project, the pattern we are using or training that model is to recognize that of students' response to a specific essay question that is grammatically correct or reasonable, relevant, and a proper length, and also a spelling word account. And the programming language for this project we are using is Python, and the package we have used is NLTK, scikit-learn, etc. And the package of Flask was used to integrate the model into the system. And the data we are feeding into the model is the previous grading and the student submission. Sorry, if you can go to the next slide. And the score we are evaluating is from 1 to 4. 1 is a failed, which will be not passed through our system. And the 2, 3, 4, which means it is passed, but 2 is for okay, 3 is for good, and 4 is for excellent, which is evaluating how poor spelling and the grammar or the students are following the direction or not. The goal of this project is to provide instant feedback to students and relieve the overload of the badge evaluators work. And the number indicated, the number between 1, 2, 3, 4, there's a percentage indicates that how likely the answer will be to evaluate it. For example, the image shows that the 4 with very high high percentage, which is 98, which means that the system evaluated this submission is highly rated as 4. And the natural language processing was applied, which is a branch of the artificial intelligence that deal with the interaction between computer and the human language using the natural language. The model was trained by previous students' reply and the score by evaluator through machine learning. In the end, the system will give us auto reply based on the previous batch response. And that is all for this project. And I will give back to Tori.
All right, so I'm Anne, and I'm an information literacy librarian and instruction coordinator, also working on this project with Tori and Wybin at the libraries. And I'm going to talk just a little bit about a research study that we have ongoing. Essentially, you can imagine we're sitting on a wealth of data as a result of this long-term project and having badging integrated into so many courses over time that we started to get curious about what information could we learn about student success related to the badging. If you want to move that forward, Tori. I'll just talk a little bit about this research study. And these are essentially the research questions that we decided to delve into a little bit based on all of the data that we have available through the badging system, as well as a few other sources of student data. So we wanted to see whether we could demonstrate any effect or connection between our information literacy and library connection badges on student grades, and also whether we could identify any correlation between badging, student badging, and library usage. And so you can see the research questions that we developed based on this. Next slide. We utilized 970 students' responses in this study. Students who had earned at least one digital badge and have a record in the registrar's database in the 2018 academic year. We obtained IRB approval prior to endeavoring on this study so that we could use data both from the registrar, from interlibrary loan department in the library, from library checkout data, so that we could really mesh these sets of data together and see what we could find in terms of student grades, library use for those students who had participated in badging. And Wybin has been our data guru, and he's going to talk us through some of the results that we have preliminarily found.
Okay, thank you again. And in this project, we conduct a t-test investigating relationship between the grade of students and their number of grades or badges they earned. We gave a score on at the right-hand side of the figure. You can see that we gave a score to each of the level for the grading. Like if you get the F, we scored in 0, and if you get score of D, we gave the score with 1, and 2. If you get the A, we give it a 9, and then investigate the correlation between the badge and the score. We found that the student who earned at least one badge have a significantly higher grade compared to this who didn't. But however, among students who has the badges, more badges will not leading a higher grade. The correlation between number of badges and the grades is very low and insignificant. And if you can go to next slide. Thank you. Oh, no, previous one, this one, yeah. Thank you. Another analysis we have done is the student library activity versus their badge earning. We found that there's no correlation between badge work and the check out of library materials. However, the way we collect the data for checking out means there's no good way to figure out at this moment. And interlibrary loan data was also an issue that we want to figure out their library behavior with bread badge learning, but there was also no enough overlap in data, so we cannot conclude any statistic computing. And the last, next slide, please. Last but not least, we also conducted the test between each batch with the student grading. The result shows that the highest correlation is 0.28, which is also a very weak positive correlation. The badge name is Organize of Information Organizing Project, which is not very low correlation. And the rest of the 31 badges, there's not very strong correlation between grades and their badges. Yeah, let's go to the end for the conclusion.
Yeah, so in conclusion, what we can tell at this point is students who have earned at least one badge do have a significantly higher grade in their courses compared to those who did not. We know that this does not mean causation, and among students who earn multiple badges, more badges does not equal a higher grade. So there are many factors that could go into this that we are diving into, but the primary being that students who do badges and are motivated to complete the badges may be higher grade earning students in the first place. So we see the correlation there, but we don't have evidence of causation. Next slide. We are looking to wrap up sort of our delving into data. We're still expanding our data set and looking for better ways to get access specifically to library related data. It's been a little bit challenging to get a data set that has the right overlapping components to be able to analyze effectively and easily, but we're working on that. We're going to be writing up these results and findings for further publication, and we're continuing to focus on AI development, making modifications to the badging platform to continue to enable us to better scale our evaluation of the badges as this program has grown. Next slide. So right at the 3 minutes left, we'll open this up if there are any questions that are in the chat that have not been responded to, or if you have additional questions and would like to put them out to the group, we're happy to entertain those. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. If anybody has any additional questions, feel free to use this time to enter your question or raise your hand and I can unmute you if you want to ask it via audio. One question I saw in the chat that did not get addressed yet was how many human graded reflections did you use to train your machine learning model?
Yeah, it depended on the badge. Oh, Hoiben, do you know the specific number?
Yes, I have directly messaged to the Chris. The answer is 3,500. That is, we have grading, and he also feedback answer gave me an answer that that. So was there a raw point that the number where your machine learning agree with exception? In other words, after the first 200 grade case, the machine would be able to perform based on the same level it performed with 3,500. And my answer is that at first, our initial model was built by 3,500 cases, and by using and the 15, I think we have like 15 or more than 10 evaluators to do the evaluation daily, and then they will fix the evaluation by the model, and then we annually we will collect all the gradings, and then we updated our model annually. That is my answer to the upcoming question for the Chris.
Great, thank you. All right, there was lots of conversation. Just to summarize quick in the recording, there is 2 different badge platforms currently being used at Penn State. There were some questions about that in the chat. The engineering department is using Credly, I think. And then the library is using an in-house developed badging platform that also has more LMS features built into it. So keep that in mind as you look at that. So Any other last questions? Otherwise, I think we are at time. And I would just like to say thank you very much to the presenters for sharing your information and your research and your data. I think it was very helpful to our attendees. So thank you very much and have a great day.